Did you guys notice anything last week in the just concluded UFC 309? Did you guys notice something very important? But before we get there, let me ask you a question. Who do you think is the most loved, the most liked UFC fighter in the current UFC roster? Or let me say in the history of the UFC. Somebody, a fighter which you know that you cannot even hate. There's nothing to hate about this fighter. There are many names, guys. There have been many names. I could call a lot of names. I mean, Justin Gaethje is every fighter's favorite fighter. When Justin Gaethje, anywhere he is, he brings up an amazing fighter and everybody loves him. Everybody loves him. When you talk of Max Holloway, he's one of the people that everybody likes as well. You can't just hate Max Holloway. Khabib also was one of the people which wasn't hated. You know, when Khabib was Khabib, he respected each and every fighter. But you could make argument that he had an issue with Conor McGregor, and for that issue, the people from Ireland doesn't like him. I mean, everybody that fights has one or two people that they don't like. But there are some fighters that you cannot just hate. Some fighters that even when if you hated them before, once you come in contact like one-on-one with them, the vibe changes. You just can't help but just fall in love with this person. They are big names. You could call John Jones. John Jones is not one liked by all the whole UFC fans. There are some fans that hated him. Who other people can you call? You could call George St. Pierre. He was loved by everybody. But he's not the most loved UFC fighter in the history. Are you going to call Brock Lesnar? DC wasn't the most loved person as well. Daniel Cormier. I mean, there are a lot of names. There is one name you could also put in that table when you talk of the most liked UFC fighter in the current roster and also in the history. You could put Alex the Great Volkanovski. He is this guy. You could notice that you can't just hate this guy. But is he the most liked UFC fighter in the current roster? I have my doubt. I have my doubt, guys. I have my doubt. When you look at this just concluded 309, I noticed something very powerful. Although we all were washed away, were like carried away with the fight. I mean, there were a lot of exciting fights. The 309 card gave us absolutely one of the best fights of this year. You know, I mean, you could see Michael Chandler. Michael Chandler is one of the most exciting fighters, if not the most exciting fighter in the UFC. I mean, he lost the fight, although he is the kind of person that he likes to put on the show, and people love him. But if you look before that fight, he was booed. He was booed. There's John Jones, who is the greatest MMA of all time. He's still being booed by people. He's still being booed. Who else can you call in that roster, in the UFC roster? Is it Adesanya, who is one of the most superstar, if not one of the most superstar, the best middleweight of all time? But not many people like him. Alex Pereira, there are some that still hate him. He's just a magnificent human being. I mean, there are a lot of names you could call. There are a lot of names you could call. There is one name. There is one person that I don't know if everybody will agree with me. But this fighter translates sufferness, zeal, loss, come back and become a champion. You know, you could become a champion. You could be on 29 and 0 like Khabib. You could be 50 and 0 like John Jones. You could be the best fighter in the roster. You could be 10 and 0 like Khamzat Chimaev or whatever. But do you know what people love? Somebody who lost, who almost lost, come back, win with emotion, with flair, with zeal, that translates to the people. I mean, when for example, you watch film, you don't want to watch a film where the actors, the good guys, that's normally that in a film, it's only the good guys that wins. I mean, when you watch a movie, you only once you see the good guy, you just wanted the good guy to win. You want the movie to end with the good guy being the winner. But that film wouldn't have been interesting, wouldn't have the spice, wouldn't have been wouldn't have you wouldn't have been motivated to watch a film that at some point in time the good guy was punished, the good guy almost died, the good guy something bad almost happened to him. By then the movie doesn't interest you. That's why we watch movie, to see the good and the bad side. And this translates to us when we want to watch a UFC fighter. People would say, oh, my favorite fighter is John Jones, my favorite fighter is Adesanya, my favorite fighter is Daniel Cormier, my favorite fighter could be Francis Ngannou, Kamaru Usman, Conor McGregor, and the list goes on. But does everybody love all these superstars? Does everybody? Could you mention everybody that said, one fighter right now that said, the whole UFC fan can't just hate? But this name I'm about to tell you guys, this name, this guy, I noticed it that he's been loved everywhere. Everywhere. If you watch the last 5 to 6 years, everywhere this fighter went, into the enemy territory, into his territory, he's been loved everywhere. If you look at his life, where he was poor, where he suffered, he was almost died as a kid, he was sick, he was proclaimed a sickler. He came back, recovered. In his own way he's living, he lived in a ghetto where people are almost killed every day. His father died. I don't know if his father or his mother that died. This guy suffered. He suffered. And his story is out there if you want to go to YouTube, you watch YouTube. His story was out there. You see him lose when he started UFC. He was called one of the man with the most quit in the UFC. He will fight, once he got hot like this, he just quit. And now he is one of the, if not the most liked UFC fighter in the history. But I'm going to assure you that this guy is the most liked UFC fighter currently in the roster. Guys, there is nobody that will tell me right now that Charles do Bronx Oliveira is not the most liked UFC fighter in the current roster. Tell me which other UFC fighter is most liked, most respected, and most loved, but not just the UFC fans, the fighters as well. Everybody loved this guy, and you could notice it in the UFC 309. I mean, who in this world is going to Bo Chandler in America, where he's from? You see the love people showed him. When Charles du Bronx went into the stage, the noise went all over the roof, because Charles du Bronx reflects life of many people. Because all those people you see, they could connect with him, because some of them too suffered. I watched the fight against his fight against Belal Dariush. Charles Oliveira was in the locker room preparing for a fight, and he was crying. He was motivated. UFC took his belt away from him against Justin Gaethje. He was super motivated that he finished Justin Gaethje in the first round. He put his life, he put emotion in this. And once you put emotion, you're like telling the fans. And you see this guy doesn't speak English, but his words are powerful. His actions are powerful. Everything he does is what we, the UFC fans, want to see. So the big question is this: is Charles Oliveira the most liked UFC fighter of all time? Or to you, who is the most liked UFC fighter in the current roster, and of course, of all time? Let me know down there in the comment below. Like if you like, subscribe to this video, my channel. Leave a comment, man. I would love to hear your opinion about this topic, because for me, I think Charles Oliveira is the most liked UFC fighter in the current roster. Thank you for being up with me on this video. Until next time, guys. Peace.